I'm an attorney licensed in the state of Colorado. Consider this situation. You are a real estate broker. You are a listing broker. You have received an offer from an offering broker. That offer is a digital offer, capable, set up so that your seller can sign and accept the offer. There is no intention in the scenario that I'm setting up in this presentation that your seller accepts that offer. In other words, your seller may have no intention of selling the property for anything less than $450,000, for example, but the offer has come in at $400,000. You send that offer on to your seller so that you can present it to your seller. You're probably legally obligated to present all offers to the seller. You want to explain the offer to the seller. It has value of presenting it to the seller so that you and your seller can talk about how you want to counter on price and perhaps other terms of the offer. But there is no intention that your seller accepts that offer. Yet, notwithstanding that, your seller gets flummoxed by the terminology, the seller doesn't understand what's going on, and signs and accepts that offer. And under this digital format, the broker who submitted the offer set it up so that the seller's acceptance of the offer gets communicated back to you, but it also gets communicated directly to the offering broker. A feature of digital e-signatures systems is that it removes the traditional role that a listing broker has, being a buffer, being a gatekeeper against potential mistakes of their sellers. Now, before we explore this further, let's remind ourselves the purpose of this presentation. It is not intended to be legal advice. If you are outside of the state of Colorado, or if we're dealing with a property that is outside the state of Colorado, I am not licensed to practice law in the jurisdiction in which you are located. If you find yourself in one of these situations, you should consult with a lawyer who is licensed in your state. All right, back to the situation. How do you prevent against these scenarios? Because you do have a duty to present all offers to your seller. Hopefully the e-signature system that you're dealing with delivers the offer in a way that is both executable, that is, your seller can sign it, but also delivers it in a format like a PDF format. What you do is you send on the PDF version to your client, and then you and your client have something in front of you to discuss. Don't send on the version that is sort of the loaded revolver that the seller can use to shoot himself. Don't send the loaded revolver to a client. Send the dud, send the PDF to your client. And then if your seller wants to sign that offer exactly as written, you can send over the digitally enabled version. Or if the seller doesn't want to accept it and the seller is inclined to counter, you can send the counter proposal over to your client. What if you've run into these situations? What if your seller has already signed? Your seller signed the offer at $400,000. Your seller didn't intend to sell for $400,000, instead intended to sell for $460,000. Is your seller completely out of luck? There are arguments that can be made in these situations. I don't want you to rely on these situations. I don't want to take the pressure off of you. Your goal is not to get into situations where you lose sleep at night about whether you committed malpractice or not. And yes, the seller is making a mistake in these situations by signing an offer that the seller did not intend to accept. But arguably, the listing broker is making the mistake by sending over the loaded gun to the seller. We've seen this phenomenon happen enough so that it's happened it's happened several times in some offices, and while an argument could be made that after this mistake has been made once or twice, the listing brokerage firm is not liable. When the mistake is made 3, 4, 5 times, then listing brokerage firms should think and anticipate and try and avoid these situations. Having said that, if you find yourself in this situation, what can you do? Is all hope lost? No, not all hope is lost. Aggressive lawyering for the seller might be able to get the seller out of the problem. One is based on a notion that if a party makes a unilateral mistake that works something that's unconscionable, then the seller might be able to get out of the contract. Another thing is that there might be certain technical things that are supposed to happen as a contract is being formed that don't happen. In other words, let me give you the example. If the property was built before 1978, there needs to be a lead-based paint disclosure protocol. If the parties have not complied with the lead-based paint protocol, then the contract is void and the seller might be off the hook. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but that's not the idea of a presentation like this. The idea of a presentation like this is to help you be as good as you can be. Be mindful of these things. Don't send the loaded revolver on to your seller client. Be careful and avoid these problems. Thank you very much for your time and attention.